Ben Brown, welcome to the podcast, mate. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks very much for having
Mate,
me,
you
guys.
played 175 games, 360 goals, Ralphie, 2 AFL clubs, a drought-breaking premiership, 4-time club leading goal kicker, multiple runner-up in the Coleman medal. It's a great record. What do you think about when you think about your career? What's the one defining moment other than the grand final?
Oh, defining moment. I think it was, I think about draft day, to be honest.
Really?
It was, four drafts that took me to get to the level. And I think, that relief in some ways, but that pure excitement, I think that everyone would have felt when every AFL player would feel when they get drafted. I still remember that, sitting there with my mum and dad and my grandma and how excited they were. And that was sort of the moment that kicked it all off. And it was, over a period of years and having to put all that time and effort in. And that's a pretty cool memory.
So you're Tasmanian royalty because Granddad Jim's a footy star and a leading politician. Of course, Uncle James, part of his own drought-breaking flag. When did that draft aspiration, when was it unearthed in you? And tell us about those early years.
I only played I played a whole heap of sport growing up and just loved sport of any kind. A lot of basketball in there, cricket, tennis, whatever I could get my hands on. Footy, I played school footy until I was in grade 10, just in Devonport. And after that point, we didn't have a school team. So that's when I went and played at Devonport Footy Club, joined up in grade 11 and enjoyed my footy. I didn't think that I'd ever make it to a high level. I would have absolutely loved to more than anything, being a sport-loving kid growing up. But I never thought that I'd get to the highest level. But it was probably a teacher I had at school that said you should go and maybe try out for the Tassie Mariners and the under 16s and, go along to some trials. And so I did that and was selected in a couple of those teams. And I remember it was my top age under 18s year. I'd played as a ruck all my life and I got the opportunity to play forward a couple of times. We had another ruck they wanted to trial and I kicked a few goals in a couple of games and then as you do when you're a 17-year-old in that era, you go on to big footy. And
of course, that's what you do.
And I saw my name popping up and people
wow.
saying, this guy from Tassie, this big weird-looing fella.
How exciting is that?
You have TikTok these days.
No TikTok, but big footy forums were definitely a thing. And
we used to get a couple of stories out of there, Ralph.
And that sort of lit the fire under me. I had the biggest roller coaster you'd ever imagine because I didn't think I was a chance of being drafted. I had maybe 3 good games in the championships and thought, it might be a thing here. And then I did my ACL.
You did an ACL, 2010 or it was around about 2010.
It was
in a game against, was it NT?
Game against NT. I think I maybe rucked against Stephen May that day.
Right.
Or maybe that was another game I'm thinking of. But it was actually a teammate ran through. It was Jimmy Webster. Really? So Jimmy, thanks, mate. No, but it was almost that moment though. I think was another really key moment for me because after that moment, I didn't play any more basketball. After that point, I went. I want to make it to the next level in football. So I put everything I could into my rehab, and another 4 drafts it took me, but
that's heartbreaking to watch, to listen to drafts. It probably was it on TV then? It would have been on TV then, and to not have your name called out.
I remember watching the picks roll through on a laptop. In my room, and then the picks would go through, and your name wasn't called, and I'm like, all right, I better go back to studying for my exams. So it was definitely
in any of those 3 drafts. Clubs interested interviewing you?
I remember after the rookie draft in my draft year, I'd done my ACL, so I'd gone to the combines, or the state combine, I think it was, and I was in Melbourne actually for the rookie draft and having a couple of weeks staying with my uncle actually. And I remember Derek Hine and I think it might have been Jace Taylor then, was at Collingwood. About an hour or 2 after the rookie draft, they drove out to my uncle's offices in Cheltenham and sat me down and said, we'd like to have you part of the VFL program. We'll do all of your rehab through the club. And I turned them down and said I wanted to stay in Tassie. So
and could have been a Magpie.
I remember having that conversation, and me as a 17, 18-year-old went, no, I want to do it myself and do it on my own merits, and not sort of need a club to whether that was the right or wrong thing to do at the time. I don't know, but went back to Tassie and back to senior footy at Glenorchy Footy Club.
And how was it playing over there? You're playing against men as you're coming through in a lot of ways there. And what brought you across? Was it the promise of North was aligned to Werribee at the time, but was there any promise there that you come across you're a chance, or was it just on spec you decided to come across a little bit later?
No. I wanted to play senior footy in Tassie and have that opportunity to play against bigger bodies and get used to that. I did have to play as a ruckman primarily down there, and that was probably the thing that I got to the point where I went, I'm probably not going to make it to the next level as a ruck. I need to play as a forward, and it was actually Mark Stone, good Werribee man and lovely human who came down over a couple of years. He came down, I think it was the end of 2011, maybe the end of 2012, and I said thanks very much, but no thanks. And then the following year, he had another coffee with me and said, I think you should come and have a trial at Werribee. And so I did, really liked it. Decided this is my opportunity to move across. Scotty West sold me the world and said that he was going to play me as a key forward. And
they had a few too, didn't they?
That year we were the tallest forward line I think that's ever existed. We had Majak Dor and Daniel Curry coming back from North. We had young Mason Wood playing in that team. Ben McKinley and Ben Warren were in that team.
It's a fair,
and somehow they fit me there as well. That year was probably what gave me that opportunity to play as a key forward and show what I could do. The Foxtel Cup as well was that year. Got a couple of opportunities in that. So, it was a really interesting year, and the alignment with North Melbourne, I suppose I was under their eye quite a lot.
So you celebrate your 21st. They eventually take you at 47 in the draft. What's that draft night like, given, as you say, you'd watched the laptop and been overlooked so often before?
I'd had a chat to a couple of clubs, and so I thought maybe this was my best opportunity. I had a call from Adrian Dodoro about an hour or so before the draft, saying like maybe strap in. So I that was the most confident I've been, but I'd sat through 3 drafts and I didn't want to take anything for granted.
Adrian gives a lot of promises, and we do love Adrian, but he doesn't always follow through. So.
And I've actually spoken to Cam Joyce since, who was the list manager at the time, about, because I asked him about it years later, because I remember they sat there for a minute and had a discussion. I remember asking him, like, what was that discussion that you had? And
a little pause in the...
I was just interested. And he said that they were tossing up between me and Joel Tippett at that pick. And they ended up getting Joel in the rookie draft. So he said they got the best of both worlds there. But that was interesting. I remember sitting, and I had, back in the day, they used to read out the number, the player number, 6-digit
player
number,
registration.
Yeah, they famously got Buddy wrong, I'm pretty sure. I think they did. They still were able to take him.
Yep, the registration number. So I remember I'd memorised my my registration number. I couldn't tell you what it was now, but I remember hearing the number and
here we go.
So that feeling was up there with the best.
And to celebrate with your family as well. I think your nan was there. Your 5 younger brothers, is that right? 5 younger brothers.
It was
mum and
dad. My 5 younger brothers. So it was me and my mum and dad and my grandma sitting in front of the telly and watching that play out. I think my brothers were scattered around the house. They'd sort of started watching it and then lost interest.
They didn't make it to pick 47.
Yeah, no, they didn't quite make it. So, but that was so exciting.
Awesome. And you're straight off to Utah after that. Is that, like, how weird is that? Kid from Tassie gets drafted after, missing a number of drafts, and then he's off to Utah straight away.
Yeah, it was straight off to Utah within a few days. So I think I had to organise a passport at short notice. I'd never travelled overseas before, and so it was straight into it.
How was it over there? Sorry, how was it over there?
It was interesting. I walked straight into a room. I was roomed with Robin Nahas. My first time there. they actually the guys said you've got to play the first thing you got to do is you got to play our worst FIFA player. And they set me up because Robin Nahas was one of the best 50 players in Australia at the time, and he played around with me for a bit. But I remember my very first night with Uzi. I said, if you've got any issues, I was a bit of a snorer. I said, if you've got any issues, like just wake me up, throw a pillow at me, and I reckon it was within 20 minutes of falling asleep. A pillow in the face.
Welcome to
and Robin moved out of the room the next night, so I had a room to myself, which wasn't the worst thing.
So Heath O'Loughlin, who was the media manager at the time, and now with basketball, he said, "Oh, this guy's going to be our new cult hero." Yep. Where did the hair come from? Where did the long run up come from? Idiosyncratic, but that was you, and you were determined to keep all of those parts of your character and your football identity.
The hair came about because I'd moved out of home, and my mum couldn't tell me to go and get a haircut anymore, so I grew it out, and it was probably laziness more than anything else. I didn't want to go to the barber. My long run up was as I said, I was a ruck growing up. So I'd never really developed anything as a set shot routine. So I developed it quite late on. Would have been at Glenorchy Footy Club I started. It started out more robotic than it ended up, believe it or not. It was something I sort of developed with the coaches at Glenorchy Footy Club, and then Keenan Reynolds was at Werribee when I was there, and it's what felt comfortable to me. For whatever reason. It was more basic than it looked. It was run straight, kick straight, follow through straight. If I do everything straight, the ball should go straight. That was the basis of it.
Did you ever think about, or did you ever try with shortening it because you had such a lovely action technically when ball hit boot? But did you ever think, I'll go exactly the same ratio, because it was long and it was almost laboured?
It was. I think I had a mental checklist along with a physical checklist, if that makes sense, when I went back for my shots. So I think it was important for me to sort of follow through and be able to tick that off. And for me, it was more about knowing that I'd done the work and knowing that what I was doing was setting me up to kick well and to calm myself down on game day. So knowing that I had a routine. And that routine, as you said, it was weird, but it made me feel comfortable. And it made me feel like I'd done the work. So that was the most important thing.
You made your debut round 14, 2014 versus Melbourne, wearing the now famous or soon to be famous number 50. You're 21, almost 22. Your last minute inclusion for Robbie Tarrant. And you're playing with a young bloke called Brent Harvey, who's 36 and has played 375. Tell us about your memories of that day. And kicking the goal, you made a bit of a tribute, I think, to your grandfather, didn't you? Tell us about that and what that meant to you, for the family.
I was nervous. I was so incredibly nervous. First game on the MCG. North didn't play on the MCG much either. So to get that opportunity to play on the MCG, I took my first mark and first kick pretty much right in the centre of the ground, which was incredibly cool. I think I settled into the game about maybe half the way through the third quarter.
It took you a while to
settle. I was playing on Lyndon Dunn, who I had a lot of battles with over the years and was a real pest to play on. I'll talk to him about this since. I just remember taking a mark and everyone telling me to go back and have a shot. It went pretty straight. It was important, particularly I think for my grandma. And my pop, who was, as you said, a player in Tasmania who played a lot of games and a big personality, I suppose, and just to show that he'd been part of that experience, but passed away in 2010, and he never got to see that first goal. So, that was what the tribute was for.
And he passed away in really challenging circumstances. The house was ransacked, and he went down and had a look at it, and then came back up and had a heart attack. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. He was an avid collector. If you went into his den, I want to call it, like just bookshelves on bookshelves of stamps and postcards and everything you can name. My mum's still going through it to this day, 15 years later. And so, I think the fact that someone had broken into the house, that was pretty stressful. Had a bit of a weak heart as it was, and it was a pretty tough time, obviously, for my grandma, who's one of the most amazing women you'll ever meet. That was that.
The first one was for her. It's a good side. Brad Scott's up and running. Boomer Harvey's flying. What's it like being thrown into that, Arden Street environment there with, I assume, lots of strong personalities and, an expectation to perform?
It was. I actually found my first couple of years at AFL level pretty tough in a lot of ways. Probably didn't fit the mould of your typical AFL player. And at times, found that environment challenging, not necessarily for, that was anyone's fault. I think it was just that I was 21, 22 and still figuring out who I was as a person and who I wanted to be. And found that challenging at times. I think in terms of the footy side of things, it was an incredibly committed team, some really amazing athletes that I was able to be a part of. And so to have that experience in terms of learning what it was like to be an AFL player and the professionalism that was required, I had a lot of really good role models in that sense that sort of pushed me along and pushed me to become a better player. So, the likes of Drew Petrie when I came to the club, to be able to learn off someone of that caliber, who was probably in the back part of his career, but taught me so much, and to have some. I mentioned Mason Wood before, but was one of the most professional players from really young age and really incredibly driven. So to have someone like that wanted to play a similar spot to you, and it was definitely, the drive was there to sort of to get better. And now watching the heights that Mason's been able to get to in this part of his career has been great to see too.
You've got a pretty strong moral code. I imagine the locker room's a pretty blokey place. It's probably a misogynist place at times. What's it like when you're 21? So you're not a kid. You want to call stuff out. You probably don't at times. There's other times, the standard you walk past the ones you accept. What's that like for a lot of people, given that Collingwood's locker room was changing? What's the dynamic?
It absolutely was. I think, as I said, a lot of really positive things about being in a football environment. This is not exclusive to North Melbourne at that stage by any means. But it was something that I had to come to terms with. It's like, what standards do I actually want to walk past, and which ones am I accepting? And it took me, a long time to come to terms with that, and to I suppose learn. There's a lot of listening and learning, I think, from the women in my life. Also, other men within football clubs that I found as I started to understand a bit more about the stats around violence against women, and about the kind of cultures that lead to violence and to disrespect, and it was a lot of listening to people and understanding that a lot of other men in those environments are feeling uncomfortable and about certain things. Again, not everything being a negative, but I sort of learnt that there are a lot more AFL players, staff members within football clubs that actually that felt like the environments and cultures needed to change. And so that was a lot of the learning that I did in that space probably led me to that point where I was more comfortable speaking out and was more comfortable being that person within football clubs.
You get blowback at times because even from 2015 to where we are now, and now you're an assistant coach at Essendon's AFLW side, and there's so much more awareness of that. Yeah, so how challenging is it when you would? I assume you call people out.
I think it was actually I got less resistance and backlash than what I thought I would. Probably as a 21-year-old, I felt like a lot of social pressures, as most of us do. Anyone, not just men. A lot of people feel those social pressures that I felt. I think as I got more comfortable with myself and was more comfortable in just expressing the person that I was, the more people accepted that, this is the way Ben is. And, that sort of helped me to be in those situations. I think too the thing I always come back to is, as I said, the stats around violence against women in Australia, the stats around sexual harassment that women experience. I think the discomfort that men feel, there is an element that we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable in that space, because it's actually important enough. I think the thing too I'd say is that a couple of things on this, that we've got an issue in this country with men's mental health too.
Yep.
And the kind of cultures that we've bred and that our society has bred that aren't anyone's fault, but it's actually not serving men either.
And clearly they're connected, the two, aren't they? The mental health compared to the domestic violence.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that. The other thing I'd say is that I talk a lot about men and masculinities, and we hear a lot about toxic masculinity at the moment. That's a bit of a buzzword. I think that is a bit of a misnomer. I think there are elements of traditional masculinity that I think are really important, and that there are times where being stoic, being strong, being respectful, being courageous, all of these things are incredibly important in certain aspects. I'd say the problem is when we expect ourselves to be that way all the time, or we expect our mates to be that way all the time, and that we lose the elements of tenderness and care and listening to other people, all of these aspects as well. I think finding that there's a time and a place for all of these things, that was the point that I got to, particularly in my football career, because people said that if you're not strong and courageous and stoic all the time, you won't make it as an AFL player, which for me came back to my experience of football. I had people say that, if I wasn't one of the boys and if I didn't buy into the culture, I wouldn't make it as an AFL player. So that was going to affect my ability to perform ultimately. What I found was that I could actually do both. I could be I don't think I was the strongest and toughest player on the field, don't get me wrong, but I could show all those traits on the field and be the loving parent, be the caring husband. I could be someone who was a really great friend to people, who cared about my teammates in a way that people found, that's me, and that's the way I do things.
You didn't have to go to the pub till 3 a.m. You didn't have to make snide or comments. No. How's the AFL experience, AFLW experience across 10 years, how's that instructed how much better those locker rooms are? Because sometimes you've got to see it to be it. You just got to be around these AFLW girls to learn what is acceptable in a locker room.
I think, again, like, people have asked me a lot, like, what's it like for the male players? Do they get stuck? That was one thing that I think was a real positive for me in terms of being involved in the male environment. AFLW came in, and the amount of support that male players have for AFLW athletes is huge. I think a lot of the commentary about the issues with AFLW is coming from outside the AFL landscape. Within football clubs, there's a whole lot of respect for each other, and I've seen that from all of the clubs that I've been a part of. There's none of the talk that some people might expect within football clubs, and the respect is really mutual there. Now, do we still have work to do in terms of the systems and structures around football clubs to allow athletes to succeed on the same level? Absolutely.
But you've seen an evolution in that.
I've seen an evolution in it. We still have a lot of work to do to get all of that right. At the end of the day, I think about my daughters, and I want them to have the same opportunities to succeed in not only just football but in life. Yeah. Why should we? What I always come back to, what kind of society we wanted to create. Not about which football team do you want to go watch on the weekend. It's actually bigger than that. Or which competition do you favour? It's actually bigger than that. What do we want our society to look like? What do we want our opportunities to be like for our young girls and women in Australia? And that's where AFLW has given people not just access to high level footy, but what it's done for my girls going to Auskick on a Friday night at where I live, what it's done for local footy, what it's done for talent pathways for girls. These are things that are far more important than, I love my AFLW players. But,
70,000 female participants playing AFL,
It's incredible.
That's the stuff that's why AFLW is important.
Yeah.
It's not for the pay grade necessarily, the women. I want them to be paid more. I think they should be. I think they should be full-time athletes, all of that.
Yeah.
But that's almost secondary in my mind.
Yeah. We'll talk about the AFLW again. Tell us about that first year. So 4 goals in your first final. It's your 9th game, an elimination final against Essendon. You're thrown right into the cut and thrust of it, and you dominate.
That was you talk about moments that I remember forever. Yeah, that was unbelievable to be part of that experience. I still remember kicking a goal in the third quarter. And I can take myself back to the feeling of, because we were in the midst of a huge comeback at that point.
40 odd points down.
Yeah, it was 40 odd points down. We were nowhere in that game.
Kicked 3 in that third quarter too.
33 points down, early in the third term.
Yeah. And then he comes out and kicks 3 in 7 minutes, Ben.
Yeah, that was, I think it was after the third one. I still remember the feeling of it felt like the stadium was shaking. Maybe that was just me, but the excitement of being in that moment. That was that, 21-year-old that's just fresh into it. And so exciting to come back and win that game. And just to be part, I still remember, the other moment I remember is Drew's second goal, and he bananaed it from 45 and just running like a lunatic towards him, going like, "We're going to win this game." Yeah. I'll remember that game.
I got a great quote from John Ralph here, of all people.
Oh, boy.
The blue and white stripes on the front of their North Melbourne jumpers are the only qualities linking Wayne Carey and Ben Brown. One was the strutting, glorious exhibit of football royalty, and the other is the gawky sideshow Bob lookalike from Glenorchy versus via Werribee. Yet as the MCG crowd feasted on an epic second half, it was Brown masquerading as North Melbourne's latest finals hero. It was a big moment for you, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the club, of course, but for you.
Well, I'd questioned along the journey, as I said, like whether I actually belonged at the level or not. And that showed me that I could do it, and probably helped to springboard myself on from there.
That finals campaign. So you beat Essendon, you beat Geelong in a semi-final, you get to Sydney at ANZ Stadium, you kick the first goal of the game, but Buddy Franklin and Sydney are up and running, and I don't know, did you run out of petrol tickets by then?
I think we did, and we were up against a pretty good Sydney team that year. I remember that game pretty well, and coming out of it and going, wow, that's the level you need to get to play in a grand final. But to have that experience of going to an AFL prelim final,
70,000 at
game
ANZ
11,
Stadium,
like that was something that I just hadn't even conceived of being an option. So, extremely cool.
So back-to-back years through at a prelim. So you dropped mid-season in the next year. That year, kicked 32 goals. You slingshot into finals, a 7-game winning streak. You make it through to a prelim final. Boomer's 400th game against Brisbane. So again, a couple of prelim finals. Would you say you were really close? Maybe not, but they were pretty heady times at the Roos.
Yeah, they were, and we had, a few players who were heading towards the end of their careers, the twilight. Brent Harvey and Drew Petrie and Nick Del Santo over and Michael Ferrito. These types that, were so desperate for it and hadn't had that. Well, I think Boomer had that experience, but none of the rest of us, given how long he was in the game. But it was pretty clear to us as young players that, they'd sit us down and go, you don't realise what this experience means, and you'll appreciate that later, but we need to impress on you how important this is. That we didn't get to a grand final, that definitely sat with me, and sat with a lot of us, I think. It probably hurt us that we didn't make that top 4 in any of those. Had
to do it the hard way, didn't
you?
Each time.
And each time we sort of got through to the first couple of years, got through to prelims from the 5th to 8th slots. Everyone talks about the 2015 game against West Coast, and we came out and kicked a few goals at the start of the game, and we're probably unlucky not to kick a couple more. And
3 goals to nil in that first term. You lead by 5 points at half time.
A couple of decisions maybe didn't go their way.
Get umpiring decisions on that.
We
You're
can
not
say
allowed
that.
to. Yeah, so that was clearly as close as you got, and then they come over the top of you.
Yeah, and I probably think back on that game in that second half and think we were run off our legs. We were pretty tired by that point. Again, maybe if we had a couple of decisions go away in the first, and the momentum in footy can swing like that. But yeah, I think that second half we were pretty run off our legs.
But you're still thinking there's more to come. You have it, earlier that final series, you have an amazing elimination final win over Richmond. I think you were 20 odd points down twice in the game and come back. So are you thinking going into 2016 that we've still got another shot left in the locker?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely we did. I can't remember if it was that year that we went.
I think you won the first 9 games in that year, and you're 2 games on top after 9 rounds.
Gee whiz.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we probably, I'm trying to remember, but I think we probably had a few injuries and
you dropped 3. You only won 3 of the last 10. I think it was injuries and a whole lot of things. Is that what went wrong? Do you think? Or?
Yeah, we kind of crawled our way into finals in the end, and I think we got beaten by Adelaide resoundingly in the elimination final we played in. So, and that was probably you looked at it and went, is that us? Is that the window closed? And after that year, it was 4 of our players were retired at the same time or moved on at the same time.
They were retired. They were sacked, really.
Yeah.
So Brad Scott clearly felt this was the end of the era. You lose by 62 points. Where were you when you found out, all those 4 blokes, Harvey, Petrie, Ferrito, Dalcerno would be moved on, I would say, against their will?
Yeah. It was, I can't remember. I couldn't tell you where I was, but I remember that feeling of just, wow, that's such a big decision. Really changed the course of the club in a lot of ways. And you look at where the club's been for the last 10 years, and sort of one of those moments, I think, that was it signalled a big change in the direction we were going.
Yeah. Did it rip the fabric out of the group a bit in that sense? Like, you're losing some, incredible players, and, potentially 1 or 2 of them could have gone on. Certainly Boomer felt like he could have played another 2 seasons. He had 25 disposals in that last game. I think I was at that game, the elimination final. He thought he had 2 years left. Did it impact the group, do you think?
I think, obviously the feelings of those guys, that's I can't speak for them and how they felt. I think in football you do have to move on pretty quickly, and it probably was that case that we came into that 2017 season. We're pretty young. We've just got to crack on here. I suppose I didn't really give too much thought to it in terms of what it did to the group. We were definitely, I think we played off essentially for the wooden spoon the following year. So it was a big shift in terms of the direction we're going as a club, for sure.
You kick 63 goals, a team wins 6 wins, 16 losses. You're getting a lot of the ball, you're delivering, you're the man. What's that feeling like?
It was mostly pretty good. I feel like being able to perform most weeks, and I think I was very fortunate too that I had a coach in Brad Scott who really backed me in. We've had a game plan that suited the way that I played. So I think for any AFL player, people talk about. I always look at the conversation around the top 10 picks and where are they now and what happened to them, and I think there's so much in the way that football clubs are able to develop players. It's not always in the individual themselves. There's a lot of luck, I think, involved in football. I landed at North Melbourne at a time where they were searching for that third key forward, and that I came in and probably kicked a couple goals at the right time, and you get another opportunity and you're sort of able to grasp it. So while I think I worked pretty hard for what I got and put a lot of time into areas of my game to get myself to that level, I think there was a lot of fortune in that as well, and timing in that. So I do feel incredibly fortunate to have had that experience, and a lot of players don't get that. They, for whatever reason, don't fit into the system as well as someone else might. You know, have a coach that doesn't see the positives necessarily in their game and focuses on the negatives. So so much can impact a player's experience of life in an AFL club.
It's a good time to be kicking 63 goals. You're out of contract at the end of that year. You signed a new deal. Were there any other clubs coming for you at that stage, Ben? You signed a new deal to the end of 2020, as it was. We were always going to stay at North.
Yeah, I was.
There were a few little feelers I remember out at the time.
Yeah, no, I never considered at that stage going anywhere else.
Yeah.
You know, I was pretty comfortable with where I was at North Melbourne, probably at that stage, and pretty much at every stage of my time at North Melbourne, I thought I was going to play at North Melbourne.
Yeah. Until the end.
Until the end.
2018, 61 goals. You kicked 61-24. You had a beautiful set shot routine.
Not bad, is it?
So you only missed finals by a game of percentage. You finished second in the Coleman. You see, you're almost on the upswing again with a young side that's going places.
Yeah. I think it. On reflection, I think what we missed. You said we missed finals by percentage. I feel like we probably outplayed ourselves that year. To go from having the list clean out that we did at the end of 2016, and then 2017 we only beat Brisbane for the spoon to finish 15th, I think it was, and then to finish 9th. I think we were probably playing above our pay grade that year, and yeah, I mean, it was exciting to be playing better footy. You always want to be winning, but I feel like we were on the upswing, but we're still very young. And that probably impacted things from there, I think.
So then your coach gets moved on, sacked, whatever it is, difference of opinions. Do you remember where you are when you realise, hang on, my first coach who believed so much in me is going to be moved on?
Yeah, it was. I remember coming into the football club and, you know, all the players standing around and listening to the press conference and sort of wondering what's going to change, what's going to, I suppose you always think about that kind of thing. And I'd only ever had Brad as a coach at AFL level, and that was all I knew. So it was certainly going to be a period of change. What that change is going to look like, I wasn't sure. But it's definitely emotional too, because as I said, Brad had put so much faith in me as a player. And as I said, you know, the kind of way that the team played at that time, I think really suited me in the way I played. So, it was definitely an emotional time. It was, and Brad now, it's weird, it's come full circle. My office is, or my office, my desk is right next to Brad's office. So we say hello to each other in the hallways now at Essendon. So it's strange how things come back around, and as well, like I'll say too, Brad was present for me over his years, even at the AFL, would call and check in.
You would often speak to him even after the...
Yeah, absolutely, which for me was incredibly important, and for him to be there for me at some difficult times in my career, and to be another ear for me, and to show that interest in a player that he really had no right to or need to show interest in. That was pretty special for me too.
So Reece Shaw's the caretaker coach. He comes in, he's playing hard ballistic football. He gets the gig. Yeah, I remember just seeing him at the end of that season. You thought, this bloke's going to be a coaching great. Mm-hmm. How challenging was it for him? You know, he had his mental health battles as well. What's it like to see the unravelling almost of a senior coach, which must be so tough?
It was tough, and I feel for Reece in a way. I think he came in as a young coach, and for a young coach coming in and having your first experience, and then having most of your football department stripped away from you and sent off to a hub to coach with a really young team, a young inexperienced team, and coming off the promise of the previous year as well, I can imagine how that would have weighed on him. It was an incredibly tough experience in the hubs in 2020 as well. I struggled a lot in that environment, and obviously that year didn't go as I would have liked personally. But it was to have all of the support taken away from football clubs would have been difficult, not only for North Melbourne, but I'm sure a lot of other clubs too would have really struggled to just provide the support that that players, that staff needed in that environment to be able to continue to play footy at that time, I think was really important for a lot of people, and for the AFL to be able to keep that going in some respect. I think it was important not only for people in the industry, but for people back home who
absolutely.
You're not nodding your head over there,
those
Glenn.
who were sitting back on the couch and that as well. It was a pretty important time.
Well, Jaden Stevenson talked about 105 days in the hub. They might have been playing finals, so fractionally longer than you. Yeah, there'd be people who say, you know what, I lost my job. You blokes were playing football in these beautiful luxury resorts in Queensland. That's not the experience. But distill for us why it was so challenging for AFL players.
I think it was, again, I can only speak for from my experience in the hub. I think, you know, we had the option of taking our partners and kids up with us, and for me that was a no-brainer in order to sort of have them there with me. And initially it was said that we might be up there for 20 days or something like that, or a couple of weeks, and even for the partners and the kids who had to go into 2 weeks of quarantine to be able to join their partners in, you know, after that point. I'm really happy that we did things the way we did them, but there was just not the ability to support people in the way that they needed to be supported.
And a lot of the, as you say, the footy departments had basically had to cut their staff, so there was none of the backup that you normally would have had.
Yeah, I mean, North Melbourne didn't take their psychologist along. So
into an environment where they would be as important as the senior coach as anyone, wouldn't they?
But that was kind of the nature of things, in that, you know, even people at the club would have had to have made those decisions incredibly quickly without any precedence for what the best scenario was. So being shifted around and again, from our experience at North, we were losing every week. Yeah. So it wasn't a fun place to be.
Yeah. There was no respite. And losing often because you know there were shortened games.
And no escape from it really. You're there 24/7. You can't get away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there were, in order to continue with our jobs and be able to do what we were able to do, I think what was done was the best that people could do at that time. But yeah, it was incredibly tough.
And it was challenging for you too, in that sense. You were, you know, about to come out of contract at the end of that year. The previous year, you know, the second last game, you've shown how good you were. You've kicked 10 goals against Port Adelaide. You're flying. How close were you to signing a contract earlier in that 2020 season? Was the contract was on the table?
It was a really interesting time in that at the end of that 2019 season, as you said, I just had a big 3 years really.
188 goals.
188 goals. It's in 66 games, Ralphie.
So at that stage, I felt like you know, I was at the peak of my powers. I was playing really good footy. We along with my management we talked to the footy club. We didn't really have people to talk to at that point because we didn't have a senior coach. We didn't have a general manager of footy. So the ability to communicate and talk about contracts at that time was incredibly limited. We were sort of told, you'll just have to wait, which was fine. As with most contract negotiations, we started out, and I think it would be very rare for a player to have the first contract put in front of them and you go, yep, great, let's move it on.
Yeah.
Which I think I'd done in maybe 2016 after a little bit of discussion. But, you know, this one we sort of started out, apart. We were sort of working to come together, as I think happens with pretty much every contract negotiation. But again, things are moving very slowly because we didn't really have a football department to talk to, a general manager of footy to talk to about these things. Brady Rawlings was in the process of coming across.
So the end of 2019.
Yeah. And then part of the way through those discussions, COVID hit and there was a contract freeze. So we were halfway through those negotiations and sort of starting to come together on them, and we literally weren't allowed to communicate and talk about contracts anymore. So
those, of course, had taken that mandatory pay cut and people were working through what the CBA will even look like.
Yeah. So at that stage for me, it was like, all right, we've got to go to the hubs. We've just got to play footy. As things transpired, my form was not great in the hubs. We were struggling as a team, probably struggling with a new system and how to implement that. And I got injured part of the way through that year.
Yeah. I think you played 9 of the first 10 and didn't play after round 10.
Yeah. So knee injury and was out for the remainder of that season. So when the contract freeze ended, it went from we're having a negotiation to there's no contract for you and you've got to look somewhere else. So
how early did you know that?
Was
it an exit interview or this is way before?
Exit interview I was told, but I knew before that.
Yeah, but no one had told you. You just heard around the traps, or someone had actually.
It was relatively clear to me that they wanted to move in a different direction at that point, and I think the way the club was going, I could understand that to an extent. Like that, I was not the only one who has moved on at the end of that year. I think they decided that they wanted to go down the youth route. Sean Higgins was moved on, Jamie McMillan was moved on, a couple of others I think too. So. In terms of like how it played out, I can very much understand that the club just wanted to go in a different direction. I don't necessarily harbour any poor feelings towards anyone for how that played out. I think it was a whole set of circumstances that we were working through, that the club was working through, that everyone was working through. And it was unfortunate that I had seen myself as I'm going to be a North Melbourne player for forever.
And if COVID doesn't hit, you probably are in that sense that that contract gets signed and.
Potentially.
Yeah.
It was again. Circumstances are different. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what might have happened as it transpired?
I think the reports, and take them, the truth rather than the reports, but the reports where you guys were looking for 4 years at about 750. At one stage, they were looking for 3 years. As you say, you were haggling. So Adam Ramanauskas, your manager, took some criticism for the likes of David King, who suggested, want of a better expression, he bungled it. So there was no real contract that you could sign at that stage that was pulled out of the table that was satisfactory to you. My point is Rama didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, no, he didn't. And that is absolutely true that the club had a 3-year deal in front of us. We'd put 4 years back. At that stage, my mind was I've had a few good years. This is going to be the last contract really that I'll probably sign that's of a reasonable length of time. And I was thinking about, the 4 years would give that extra security of knowing that I was at a club for
a house
for longer. Yeah. In terms of where we would have got to had we continued those discussions, maybe we would have signed a 3-year deal at the end. I think it was so, and this is where all the discussion around it, I think, didn't really take into account the circumstances. Yeah. As I said before, we were right at the beginning of a discussion. Of course we're going to say 4 years and they're going to say 3. Like
that's what you do.
We're trying to get the best scenario for both. So I think who knows those discussions, if they had progressed further than being like right at the start of the conversation, probably would have progressed further and we would have found a middle ground, as happens with every contract negotiation. As it was, COVID hits. No general manager of football, no coach. It's pretty hard to to make those calls. So but in terms of from my perspective, I don't harbour any ill feeling.
Yeah, how traumatic was that year for you with Hester as well? It was a tough year, wasn't it? That whole season, not just football, personal as well.
Yeah. Well,
tough.
We went up to the hubs and Hess was incredibly unwell. She was pregnant with our second child at that time. We found out at a stage along that journey that Esme, our second, was a twin, and we lost one of those twins relatively early on in the pregnancy. Vanishing twin. So going through all that experience without having the family and the support around necessarily to deal with that properly, and also trying to head to training when we had a 1.5-year-old and my wife incredibly sick and spewing up multiple times a day, and still trying to be able to perform in that environment. She went to hospital at one point because through the illness. So, it was incredibly challenging just being in that environment, and also not playing the football personally or as a team as we would have liked to, and then having the injury off the back of that. It all probably exacerbated things. It's probably in terms of mentally and how it was getting through that year is probably as tough as it's been for us. But these things happen. You just got to push through and get through them as best you can.
How did you get to Melbourne?
It was probably a process through after that exit interview, looking at what are the next options. Melbourne came to me and were immediately, I felt like it was clear why they wanted me as a player, and they saw the strengths that I could bring. And I remember sitting in that first meeting with Simon Goodwin and Alan Richardson, and I think Gorney was in the first meeting that I had with them too. So sort of showed their interest levels, and I remember them saying that we feel like we're in a premiership window. And I don't know if everyone at that time would have thought the same.
Yeah,
but
it's a fair point.
But when they explained it and said, these are the players we've got, this is what we're building, it did. I could believe it. So it became pretty clear that that they were sort of the front runners there, and that I could potentially go across and sort of reignite my career at that point, because I'd taken a hit, I suppose, in confidence and in my strengths and what I could bring to a team. So to hear that a club could see those strengths and wanted to bring them out was a really positive thing for me.
Your links with Simon Goodwin, how was that? Like, he was obviously at the first meeting and got you a spot in the team. Said, "Here's where you're going to play." How was he to you? Like, we've just seen a lot of his current players sort of talk about how important he was for them. How important was he for you?
Well, I mean, the club and Goody took a punt on me. I'd just come off a knee injury.
Yep.
I'd had multiple knee injuries before that point, so they're taking a guy who's potentially got that cloud over him, that had a poor year by everything from an external point of view, at least the previous season. So in order to see through all of that and to give you an opportunity and feel like you can fit into something, that was incredibly important for me. I think from really early on, I remember sort of walking around the ground out at Casey Fields with him and saying, we don't need you to get there straight away, to know that we back you in, and we know that you're going to put the work in to do what you need to do. Even when I came in 2021, played a couple games and then was dropped back to the VFL, the support from him was still there, and he believed that I could get back to play my best football, and that was important in terms of getting back to my best the back end of 21.
So you missed until round 7 with a knee. You play round 7 to 9. Then I think you missed with some injury. Did you play some VFL? Was some of that form related before you got back in for round 17? And obviously we know what that built towards.
Yeah, it was form related. I played a couple of games, and probably like I had a little bit in 2020, probably went away from some of the things that made me a really good player, and I needed to rediscover that for myself, I think, as much as anything. I remember going back and playing my first game back in the VFL after being dropped. It was against GWS out at Casey, and I remember just being so resoundingly beaten. I think I had 4 or 5 touches, couldn't get near it, felt like I'd forgotten how to play football. And the following 5 weeks, I think it was, in the VFL, that's probably the moment I think back on with the most pride, is that I was able to dig myself out of that hole that I was in. I'd had 12 to 18 months of probably feeling like I couldn't discover where my best form was at, or how to find that again. And I went back and watched some old vision of myself
Did you?
playing
Yeah.
well, and then probably compared it to that GWS game, and I went, what am I doing now that I wasn't doing then, and vice versa. And I just saw a few things that it looked like watching a different player.
Yeah.
So I went, okay, if I'm going to get back to my best, these are the things I've got to do. I got a little book and started writing just one thing I was going to do each training session and each game. I'd start with, today I will do this. Because for me, I think I got to that point where I had a million things in my head that I needed to get exactly right and get perfect out on the field. And it meant that I basically collapsed in on myself, and I got so tight that I couldn't do anything because I had to be perfect. So to be able to write those little things in that book and tick them off when I did them well, whether it was at training or a game, it simplified the game again and made it go, I just want to launch into contests today. That's all I want to do. It made me forget about the goal kicking. It made me forget about having to be perfect in every body up 1v1 contest. Like, these are the things that make me a good player. This is what I want to go back to doing. And I did that, and I managed to get back into the side after playing in the twos for 6 weeks, and then to be able to actually not just be part of a flag, but to feel like I really contributed to that team in the back part of that year. That's something that that sort of resilience piece, me able to bounce back, was something that I'm probably most proud of in my career.
What part of you, you're in hubs again, you're away from your family at that stage. What part of you thinks, hang on, we're a chance here? Because you beat Brisbane in a qualifying final by a goal, you beat Geelong in a prelim, and then, of course, you're into a WA-based grand final.
It was a really good feeling around that group. I think we had very minimal injuries that year. I think towards the back end particularly, we were an incredibly healthy list. So we had players that had played a good chunk of football together with each other coming into the finals and coming into the grand final, which I think really helped. And we also had a really driven group underneath that sort of core group who were training us incredibly hard and going at us in training, that weren't in the team, I've seen scenarios where some of those players would just switch off and go, I'm not getting back into this team, and I'm going to check out, and I'm going to get through training. These guys were not checked out, so the ability
pushing.
So the ability for the coaching staff and everyone who was there to be able to keep that motivation going, I think was incredibly important for us. But it did feel like we were building something pretty special going through that final
You
series.
kicked 2 goals. Sorry, Gruff. You
No,
go first.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. You kicked a goal and 2 goals rather than the
Yeah,
margins.
so he kicked a goal in the Ben kicked a goal in Brisbane, and you kicked 2 against Geelong in the preliminary final. What are your thoughts? You're in a grand final. You came so close, or a couple of preliminary finals. What are your thoughts going into that grand final? Your family sort of split. Hester and the kids are back here. Your Tasmanian family can go. And I think there was a week off. That year was a week off before the grand final.
I've forgotten it all. I've got toxic shock. I don't remember anything apart from the flag in the third quarter for Melbourne.
We had a bit of a wait. But to get the family across from Tasmania was great. But how tough is it that Hester and the kids are back here in Melbourne?
Well, they went through, for Hess and the kids, like Hess went through some of the toughest times with me. And I think for me, I would have loved to have been able to share that the biggest moment.
It's pretty hard, isn't it?
With her. And so that was incredibly difficult. And the fact that at that time she had to hold it all together while we had a baby who was barely sleeping at that time. Amazing. I think she nearly lost her mind while I was in those hubs. But for her to be able to, every video call that I had with her and the kids was positive, and I love what you're doing and I want you to succeed. That I will, I really cherish how much she was able to support me through what was really a pretty horrific time for her. But to have my Tassie-based family, my mum and dad, my brothers, my grandma came over for the game.
So Melissa and Doug, four of your 5 brothers, Alex, James, Luke, Dominic, only Cameron missed through work. Everyone was there.
Yes. To have them in the rooms afterwards was so amazing. And that whole experience of that grand final was just bizarre in a lot of ways.
Take us through the game. Stephen May, of course, at the other end has a hamstring issue. Might have been 6 centimetre tear. He didn't want to know the extent of it. Plays on Norton, who doesn't really expose him. Bontempelli in that second quarter was catching fire. You kicked 3 goals. Take us through the flow of an incredible game.
Yeah, I remember I was incredibly nervous the night before the game. Again, I wrote a lot in that year. I wrote down in my little notebook all the things that I was telling myself might happen that were making me feel nervous, and then I wrote on the other page what I'm going to write back to that voice. That really calmed me down going into the game. Still, obviously, incredibly nervous, but that gave me the confidence that I was ready to go. In terms of the game, I remember sitting down halfway through that third quarter on the bench and going, geez, we feel like we were in like third gear here and we haven't got going yet. But this game's going to get away from us. We're going to lose.
Well, Bont kicks the goal at the 12-minute mark and then 19 points in front. And I think everyone thinks the momentum switched.
Yep. I felt that too. I just thought we've got to get going here or it'll be a huge opportunity missed. It felt like coming out of the other finals that we were just primed and ready to go and the Bulldogs are going to win. And then I've never been part of anything like at the end of that third quarter before. It's just a
wave, wasn't it? Really, it was just a wave of momentum.
Yeah.
The hardest 74-point win you've ever seen because it was hard, but it just was extraordinary.
Yeah, I to be out there on the ground while that was going on, to participate in it, that's something you just look back on and just shake your head.
So they kicked a lot of those goals over your head, but what was it like looking as, Luke Jackson and Petraka and Oliver and wresting it out of the stoppages and just bombing it from 50 and as that's ticking along, you're thinking, we're a chance here. Hang on, we're in a great position. Hang on, we can't lose.
Yeah, I think that was what we'd built throughout that whole year. I don't think I've come across many teams that were as good at being able to get the ball out of a contest to the outside as we did. And that was, Clary and Track and Jack Viney and all these young Cozzy Pickett at that stage, Luke Jackson. Just their ability to get out of contest and get it to the outside. And that was the thing that the Bulldogs have been able to take away from us. And suddenly we're able to get the ball out. It felt like this is us at our absolute best. But yeah, the last 10 or 15 minutes was really fun. Because, we got to the end of a grand final. We know we're home.
As you say, you didn't play in that grand final. You really contributed in that grand final. How important is that for you when you're a grandkid, telling the kids you put the VHS in or whatever it is to say, I stood up?
It's really cool. It's something that no one can ever take away from me, that I was able to do that. I was able to contribute to a grand final winning team. I wasn't just there. I played really well. And the fact that I can say that after that previous sort of 18 months, it was the real roller coaster that AFL can be. But yeah, incredibly proud of it, and something that I think, maybe I'll tell the grandkids in the future.
If I'm a Melbourne fan, I'm thinking our coach just got sacked this week as we're recording this podcast. What went wrong in those intervening years? You kicked 30 goals in 19 games in 2022. More challenging in terms of some of your injuries. How do you distill, the challenges Melbourne faced and ultimately wasn't able to respond to?
Yeah, probably. In terms of that 2021 year, as I said, we were remarkably healthy at the back end of that year. I think we had various struggles at times in those following years with injuries to key players, even in 2024, like Angus Brayshaw and what he went through, to lose a player of that ilk in late in the preseason
as well.
Everything. He was so integral to the fabric of Melbourne and what made Melbourne what it was. That was we probably struggled to get back to that level of having everyone out on the park at the same time. And yeah, for me personally, it was a case of I was sort of battling my body the last couple of years a little bit more, which was something that I mentally tried to put to the back of my mind because you never want to be thinking about that kind of thing. But it did get more difficult.
People have talked about the culture of Melbourne. It's been spoken about more than any other club. What is the culture of Melbourne that you lived through and experienced? You saw some highs, you saw some lows. Is it hard to define in a couple of minute answer? How would you sum it up?
Yeah, it probably is. Did Melbourne and people in Melbourne do everything right over the last few years? I don't necessarily think they did. I think AFL clubs are far from perfect. What I would say is that I don't think it's ever as bad or as good as it seems. I really love that term in terms of that phrase in terms of talking about AFL clubs. It was another AFL club, just another AFL club to be actually in the place. Yeah. The way that the coaches, the players were able to get through any point or any hardship that came up or anything in the media. It was being able to move on and get on with football and get on with trying to be the best team we could be. I feel like being able to bring things back to just what are we trying to do as a footy team. That's what most clubs will do. That's what Melbourne did. I don't think it was, anything to write home about.
So when it was finished, Jaden Stevenson said, I'm free. Stuart Cranberry said, I'm free. You probably knew by the end it was time that your body was packing up to a certain extent. How did it finish up in terms of your career?
It was probably, as I said, it was tougher those last couple of years. I'd probably just had a couple of, I had 9 knee surgeries by the end of my career. So got to the point where I'd have to warm up in the rooms or in the gym for 40 minutes just to get out and train. And I'd train and then I'd be sore for the next 3 days and then I'd just get up for the game and I'd play and then I'd be hobbling around at home for the next 4 days to get up for training. So, it was tough to come to terms with that in terms of I could feel like I remembered what it was like to play that best football, but not being able to train it enough to be able to get out on the park and actually do it was difficult, and to probably lose that little bit of spring
so it became inevitable. You thought in that 2024 season, I think you played 6 games and your last one was like round 11. I can't do this anymore.
It became
too tough.
It did.
On your body,
to be honest.
For a long-term perspective as well. You're a young man, you've got kids, you want to be able to enjoy life.
Well, that was one of the biggest things was I want to still be running around with my kids.
Definitely.
In 10, 15 years' time.
Yeah.
That was definitely a consideration. But I do remember my last VFL game. I got one last VFL game up in Gold Coast, and I really wanted to send off on a good note. Yeah. And it was nice to be able to do that in my last game.
How did you find yourself at the Essendon Footy Club? A bit of the migration, a lot of the North Melbourne people along with Brad Scott. What are you doing? And tell us about the AFLW.
Yeah, so been involved in women's footy since, going to watch the exhibition games in 2014, it must have been, when I was just 2015, when I was just starting out at North Melbourne. I really wanted to get involved. Again, it was kind of, I felt like I had been so incredibly lucky to have the experience that I had in football. And, I remember playing with girls that I grew up with who were told after grade 6 at school that there's no team for you to play in, you've got to go play something else. Girls that were at that stage better than me and bigger than me. I just felt like that wasn't fair. They didn't get that opportunity. So that was what drove me into it and going, I'm lucky enough to have this. How can I give back to the game in a way that invites more of us into it? So went down first of all before North Melbourne had a team to help out at Melbourne Uni training sessions. Had like a young Izzy Huntington holding the marking bag for us so she could jump, or kicking footies back out for Caitlin Greiser and just having shots at goal. So met a few players there. North Melbourne got a team, was sort of part of the group that wanted to sort of bring the players in and make them feel like they were really part of the club. So did some work on that. Loved being a coach over the last 8-9 years. So when I finished up, I knew I wanted to stay in the W space, and the opportunity came up at Essendon to be their head of development. They were looking to expand on their coaching group and to be able to learn from someone of Natalie Wood's experience in football and experience in the way that she teaches the game was and again, it's very different to be a senior coach at an AFLW club compared to an AFLM club. So to just experience the workload and the amount that Woody has to be across, that's given me a real appreciation for what it's like to be, in the women's space.
Last one from me. Tell me about your wife. What an extraordinary woman.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on that. I love everything that she is. I love everything that she's about. She taught me, I suppose, to be the person that I wanted to be. She challenged me to be the person that I knew internally I wanted to be. But she brought that out in the best way. She is a wonderful mother. She's everything. Yeah, it's I could talk about her. I could talk about her all day, but just to sum it up, she knows exactly who she is, and she taught me to be comfortable with the person that I am, and that for me has meant everything.
Yeah, Ben, it's been an amazing career, but I get the feeling your career post-footy is going to be every bit as important. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks very much, guys.